Hello and welcome to FPSKivotos. I'm your host Bridge, and let's get started. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite rate gamer from the Game Development Club. And of course, I'm talking about Momoi. When it comes to her firearm of choice, she uses the H&K G3, or in my case, the Setme C308. As always, we're going to talk about the similarities and differences, as well as talking about some of her battle animations, firing footage, and all that good stuff. And as always, to kick things off, let's talk about the color. As you can see here, it's not exactly one-to-one. I did my very best. The main difference here is these lines right here. These are supposed to be more of like a neon color, and I did try a like neon pink color, and it didn't look that great. And it didn't really adhere to the metal all too well, so I kind of decided to just switch it over to a different standard pink color here. And as you can see right next to the magwell here, there's a certain portion of it that actually is kind of discolored, which is like, it's on both sides. I guess I just used the wrong paint at the time, but overall I think this section does look really good for, you know, the liberties that I had to take for that. Moving over to the back here, we have the stock and we have the separated lines. I tried my best to get these lines to be as straight as possible. If you look a little bit closer as you like turn it, as you can definitely see on the bottom, they're not entirely lined up, but I think I did a pretty good job at matching her design. I really just wanted to get the proper amount of lines here, as you can probably see on her rifle right. And I think it just turned out really, really nice at the end of the day. Moving up to the sights, as you can see here, there's a Picatinny rail. This one came with a Picatinny rail, the H&K G3, at least the one that she uses in game, does not have a rail. She just kind of runs iron sights. And as you can see here, we have the iron sight here, which different positionings to have for different ranges as well. I mostly just use it on this setting in particular if I'm actually using the iron sights. I didn't really use them that much because since I had the Picatinny rail, I threw on a Sig Sauer MSR red dot sight when we were shooting. And honestly, it worked pretty well, especially since it was one that was just used on my normal AR-15 that I have. I thought about painting it, but I'll probably get a more dedicated red dot for this build later because I really, really enjoy the way this shot, and I'm a really big fan of it, even though I'm left-handed. And H&K, for the most part, at least the G3 family of rifles, aren't the most left-hand friendly rifles, and I'll explain that more here in a second. Moving down to the trigger group here, as you can see, we have the nice purple color. I did decide to avoid the like stripe, the pink stripe that goes here, just because I think it'd be a little bit hard to separate those colors and, you know, get it to look nice and straight. Well, it's not really straight, but you know what I mean. But then it transitions into the lighter pink color, into the hot pink color, and then as you can see here, the fire selector as well as the trigger is the magenta color. One of the glaring differences between mine and hers is the trigger guard here. As you can see, mine's just painted pink. Hers has these like circle orb things that are varying different colors. I didn't really want to either destroy my trigger guard or add something onto it to make it look like that, because if I were to do that, I would need to like have this bottom section open so to allow me to actually pull the trigger in the first place. So forgive me for not actually adding that detail. I didn't think it was really worthwhile to attempt to cut up my trigger guard or anything like that. Moving on down to the magazine, as you can see here, we have 20 round magazines. These are curved, and I'll explain the difference. There's a very specific magazine she uses during her battle skill that looks very similar to this one, but for the most part, she uses the standard G3 HK91 straight mags that are also 20 round capacity. So there's not much different other than the looks of these ones, but my buddy just bought me a whole bunch of the curved mags since that was the ones that we could find, and they were fairly cheap for the most part, and they've all worked fairly well. As you can see for the design, I only did this on one magazine. I do have a couple others, like I mentioned, that just have the magenta color. This paint job for the white was kind of difficult, and as you can see, it's coming off since I just kind of used like some sort of a whiteout marker essentially. And I thought that it was fine to just do it with one and paint the rest because it was kind of a bitch to do. And as you can see, the little lip here, I didn't want to paint that either, just in case it would interfere with the magwell, and so it does have that weird metallic color here, but you know, it's a little bit of a vibe, maybe a bad vibe, but you know, it's still what I decided to go with at the end of the day. Moving forward, we have the handguard. Compared to a standard G3, this is a fairly slim handguard, and for the most part, just like I said with the stock, I wanted to try to mimic the lines as best I could, you know, for the separation of the two different paint colors, and I think it turned out pretty good. And as you can see here, we have the game development decal sticker. I think it turned out great, and it really stood up to, you know, the 120 rounds that we shot through this, and I'm really impressed with, you know, it sticking and staying on there. They actually printed on the right side too, which is great, unlike how they did with Kana's pistol. But regardless of that, getting the separations of the color for up here near the front was kind of difficult, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it just looks really nice, you know, as a complete package. Moving forward, we have the front post sight here that's painted in the magenta color that fades and transitions into the lighter pink, back to magenta, into purple, and back into the magenta color. I didn't have enough room to really add that little yellow bit on hers, and honestly the shape of it is completely different too. This muzzle brake, with the way it's shaped and the way it like vents out from the top, man, being the shooter, perfectly fine. Being behind the shooter, that's a completely different story. That muzzle brake kind of was ported off to the sides, and you can feel it. You could definitely feel the impulse of it as you're shooting. Now granted, the caliber is completely different, but you could feel that impulse for the most part, and it was fairly warm. For this one, you can really feel it. Now granted, it is 308, so it's a pretty big round for the most part, and you can really feel the impulse if you're not the shooter. And it's kind of, if you haven't shot something like this before, it's kind of intimidating. Like, as being behind the line, it is kind of intimidating, but when you're actually shooting it, it's fairly smooth for the most part. I did forget to mention one of the biggest differences between at least mine and some standard G3 pattern rifles. I don't think all of them have it, but a good majority of them have a paddle mag release right here where you can actually hit that and it engages the mag release so you can take it out a little bit easier. For right-handed shooters, I feel like unless you have really long hands, with Momoi definitely doesn't have really long hands, it's kind of hard to press the mag release. Like, yeah, you can reach it. I don't have the longest fingers in the world, but you kind of have to really reach for it to hit that mag release. Being left-handed, it actually is really easy. Since my hand is on the handguard like this most of the time, I can just bring it back and hit that mag release like this, kind of like how I do on any AR, to be honest. But having that paddle mag release makes it a little bit easier for most shooters. This one doesn't have it, and it looks like Momoi's doesn't have it, so she's really like, she must have really long fingers, to be completely honest. It doesn't look like she has it, but she probably does, because that would mean she would have some really long fingers for being such a small girl. One of the big things, the reason why this is so different from G3 rifles is because this is actually the older brother of the G3. The Set Me Model C, which is what this is based on, this is from Century Arms. They made a clone, which is this, of that Model C, which is a Spanish firearm and used in their military. Was the predecessor to the G3 family, so it doesn't have some of the features that the G3 has, which like the paddle mag release, and I think there's a few other things that are completely like different from it. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not completely one-to-one to a G3 since this came out before that, and I think that's really interesting, and I got it for a fairly decent price. I'm a really big fan with how this turned out, even though some of the colors are different, and it's kind of hard to get it to be one-to-one, but most of the time, a lot of my builds aren't exactly one-to-one. I just try to make it look as close as physically possible, and I think I did a pretty damn good job with this one this time around. If you guys have been enjoying this episode so far, please make sure to HK slap your rifles, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to know when I upload every single time. Now, with all the similarities and differences out of the way, let's move on to the battle animations. Momoi has two different strikers, one in her initial outfit and in a Maid outfit, so we're going to be talking about both of them. As always, we're going to start with the original outfit. When it comes to the reload, she's got two, one for standing up, and one for crouching down. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, when it comes to the mag release, there is two versions, which is the standard mag release push button on the right side of the gun, as well as the paddle mag release, which most standard HK rifles have for the most part. And I assume that hers has it because it is a genuine HK, because she is right-handed. Most of the characters are right-handed. And for her to like reach that button mag release, she's gonna have to have really long fingers. And I don't think she does, because she's pretty short. And it's even hard for me, and granted, I don't have the biggest hands in the world. It is kind of hard for me to reach that mag release button with my right hand if I was holding it, you know, as a right-handed shooter to press that. So my assumption is that she's hitting the mag release or the paddle mag release with her left hand, releasing it, letting it drop onto the ground, and slapping a new one in there really fast and really smooth. She's pretty quick with it for the most part. Now she very well could be hitting it with the middle finger of her left hand if she's holding, since she's holding the gun on the handguard a little bit further back than what I was. But I feel like it would just be easier for her to hit the paddle mag release with her left hand to drop that magazine. We finally actually got an assault rifle character that shoots in 3-round burst. I am assuming that she's shooting in semi-auto and just pulling the trigger 3 times. She could very well have full auto, since, you know, that's probably not illegal to have, or not, I guess not illegal to have, you know, not as expensive to have in Kivotos than it is here in the real world. And with how that fire rate is, I'm pretty sure she is just semi-auto in it, but she's shooting in 3-round burst. And as I mentioned earlier, the magazines are 20-round capacities. And I counted every single time she does a reload, she only shoots 15 times, or well, 15 bullets. Now the chibis are fairly, like, expressive, and their animations are really solid for the most part, but there's certain things that they can't animate, and I think it's really interesting that they didn't animate an HK slap of any type, because she doesn't bring the bolt back to the closed position, so she doesn't bring the bolt back into the open position. So that means that she's loading every single mag with 16 rounds, shooting them in 3-round burst, and then leaving 1 round in the chamber, dropping the mag and putting a new one in, and then doing the same process over and over again to shoot just 15 rounds. So she's always losing a round. I mean, obviously, you know, they don't have to be super detailed, but when you think about it more logically and like more in depth, kind of like how Kana's pistol was, it doesn't really make all that sense why it's not, you know, doing a proper reload, but that's neither here or there. I just thought that was a really interesting detail. When it comes to like how she's shooting, she does shoulder it, which is nice, and she's aiming, and she's pretty accurate for the most part, which is kind of interesting for a gamer, you know. But with those animations out of the way, let's talk about her EX skill. For her EX skill, she loses to her sister Midori, and she gets kind of angry, and as we see in the animation, she looks like she puts in a new magazine and then just flips that bitch to full auto and lets loose. I couldn't really count how many shots she shoots, but it's a lot, and it does a lot of damage in a fan fire, and so it's really nice to take out crowds, or, you know, if you're doing the EXP reports against those little fucking robots. Great way to clear them out, clear out a big group of them. Now, moving on to the Maid outfit, the reload animations are exactly the same, but we're just going to be talking about her shooting stance, which is really interesting, and the EX skill. When it comes to the shooting stance, as I mentioned in her initial card, she does shoulder the rifle, but when it comes to the Maid outfit, she actually hips fires it. She still shoots it in 3-round bursts, and it's still 15 rounds, and then she does a reload, but she does it from the hip, which I think is really interesting that they adjusted her animation model to be able to, you know, shoot from the hip like that, rather than, you know, shouldering it. The chibis aren't the most expressive, and like there's some things that they can't do, but when they do certain things like this, I think it's really neat. And I mean, most of the time, to be completely honest, most of us aren't really watching the battle animations, or we have it on 3x speed, or we're just skipping it. So it's like, I think it's really interesting how detailed these can be. But since her reloads are the same, like I mentioned, we're just gonna go straight into her EX skill. And I think this one's really neat because it does the on-the-rail shooter thing where, you know, it goes in first person, you see the little cursor, and she is absolutely whiffing every single shot, just like a gamer really should. Maybe she's a console gamer and really likes aim assist. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's really funny that she's missing all her shots, and then she shoots a painting in the back there, and it's revealed to have a golden magazine. Now, the interesting thing about this golden magazine and the magazine that she used normally is that this one's very similar to the ones that I have. I'm pretty sure, I'm not entirely sure if they're set me exclusive magazines. They work on most of the platforms, right? There's some that don't work or have any cross compatibilities, but I know for a fact that mine work in mine, obviously. So I assume they're like semi-mags, and I'm pretty sure the straight turning around mags wouldn't work as well. But it's interesting that that one is the curved magazine, just like mine, while she uses the straight mags. She doesn't load it in, which I think would be really cool if they, had an animation where she loaded in the golden magazine and that was just kind of popping out. But when she does that, she gets aimbot, essentially, and she is just going to town on them in 3-round bursts, going from target to target to target to target. It really does seem like she just got really mad at the rail shooter and decided to plug in like a Cronus or something, even though it's a rail shooter, plug in a Cronus and just have aimbot to just destroy everybody. And I think that's really funny. I did have a friend of mine provide the footage for me, so thank you very much to them. Didn't have anything they wanted to shout out or anything like that, so I'm very grateful for them, because I didn't actually think that there was much difference between the animations, but seeing like, shooting from the hip versus shooting from the shoulder, was something that's worth noting. I'm not quite sure if it's a timer or it's actually like a magazine capacity that she does for this, because instead of shooting 15 rounds, she shot, I counted, 28 rounds and then did a reload and went back to normal. Now, like I mentioned, I'm not entirely sure if it's time-based or magazine-based, but I think that's really interesting that they went with 28 rounds. These rifles can shoot 30-round mags, and they do have 30-round mags, but they are much longer than what this one looked like, because it is just a standard 20-round magazine. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. I just thought it was a neat detail to tell you guys about. But with all that out of the way, let's move on to the conclusion. To anyone who has come here from the Twitter post and reached this part of the video, I got a little special skit for you and a little bit of a song. Because you can't have a video about an HK style rifle without doing the HK slap. He has been stuck in this room for weeks. What do you mean, do not disturb important work? What is so important to you not responding to literally anything? What is... there's a thing called knocking, right? Whatever, who the fuck cares about knocking? What are you doing in here? What does it look like I'm doing? I'm doing research on the HK slap. The HK slap? What are you talking about? I thought you were trying to look up things about Momoi. Well, if I'm doing a video on Momoi, I think I would have to learn a lot about the character in particular and the gun that she uses. I'm not entirely sure a bunch of AI covers and some other memes about her are the best representation of her as a character. I think this is a perfect interpretation of what she is as a character, actually. Thank you very much. Alright, whatever the fuck you want to do, man. You do you. All I want to know is, what the hell is the HK slap? Well, why don't I just show you? Slap it with your left, slap it with your right, slap it into day and slap it into night. Slap it like you mean it, slap it like a god. I slap it when I see it, it always gets me hard.
Listen, I didn't come all this way for you to just be gentle with me, alright? I need you to slap me hard. I need to go into battery, alright? Give it to me. Don't hold back.
Do the HK slap, 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 slappy ass, 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 slap, 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 slappy ass.
That's right.
That was a fun little skit, and if you know any of the Easter eggs in the that portion of it, good job. You've been in this community for a while. I'm a really big fan of PSR, and it really inspires me to do all the kind of the funnier skits and stuff like that. It really sucks that his channel has gotten another strike, so he's one more away from never uploading on YouTube. Not being able to upload on YouTube ever again, which really fucking sucks. So, to anybody who's here, go support him and his music that he does make too, and the content that he makes, because he's a great individual, and I'm a really big fan of his work, and I would love to do some sort of, or like collab, or like meet him in some form or fashion. I think that would be awesome. But, anyway, with that out of the way, thank you so much for watching this episode. It's been an absolute blast to do this one. Probably one of my favorite paint jobs to date. This one and Michiru Shotgun definitely the two hardest ones, and I think this one takes the cake as the hardest one, just because of how many different layers I needed to do to mask things off to be able to get the paint job the way I wanted it to. I know for a fact before I go onto this hiatus, I have one more Blue Archive character video to do that will be going up here the next 2 to 3 weeks, so be sure to keep an eye out for that one. But as always, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching to the very end, if any of you do that. I know there's not a lot of people that do that, you know, you watch a little bit and then you leave or do stuff like that. To whomever is here right now, thank you. I really appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone's support, whether you like, comment, subscribe, share, you know, retweet the post on Twitter, anything like that. Thank you. It really means the absolute world for me. As I mentioned in the past, I am going on a little bit of a hiatus for a couple months, probably, I don't know, maybe 5 to 6 months is my guess. Just because money is tight and I need to help pay stuff off with my family, essentially. We've got bills to pay, things of the such, things that I don't really get into too much, but things are getting a little bit tighter and tighter as the days go on. As much as I love doing this, I don't get any financial gain from it because I don't have any sponsorships or anything like that. I do it all out of pocket. All the money that I put in here, I don't expect to get back in any form or fashion, really. I would love for that to be the case. If someone would love to sponsor me, that would be great. I'm down for most sponsorships, but you know, it's something that I would really want to have the ability to continue doing. But as of right now, I need to save the money to be able to do things like, specifically, go to Offkai and pay off all the Airbnb, the plane tickets, all that stuff, and just be able to live decently for the next couple months for that, and just in general to make sure things are squared away. During this hiatus, I'll probably still be buying, like, you know, a few guns here and there just to be able to get things ready for when I do come back, but it will be a little while, and I just appreciate all of you. It may even be shorter than 5 months. I'm not even entirely sure. I just want to take a little bit of a break to be able to recuperate everything that I've done so far. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I did in making this one, as I do every single video. Like I mentioned, I'll probably be buying at least another gun or two for the projects to be able to start working on while I'm gone, as well as doing some VTuber ones because I've been having those on the back burner as well. I have a few in mind that I'm going to be getting done in the same time span of that like little hiatus I'm doing. I've been your host, Bridge. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.